Hey, I'm Blair Best. It's Friday here on The Story, and tonight, a new development in the potential National Guard deployment to Portland. Kyla Boshi joins us to untangle the legal mess in just a few minutes. Plus, a rare look inside one of the underground tanks at the Hanford site in Washington, where radioactive nuclear waste is seeping into the ground. But first, over 700,000 Oregonians may not receive their food stamp benefits next month if the federal government shutdown continues. I talked with a group of people impacted by this who you might not think of, and it's our big story tonight. Inside Portland State University's food pantry,
we are a resource here for students.
Tess Conley braces for November 1st.
We expect to see a huge influx in people utilizing the pantry.
Next month, due to the ongoing federal government shutdown, 1 in 6 Oregonians, around 750,000 people, may lose food stamp benefits through SNAP, the federal Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. It helps people with low incomes pay for groceries, including college students.
I don't know. I'm really hoping
like Ray.
I don't have a clear budget for my food. It's only from SNAP.
Ray gets roughly $290 a month through SNAP, the maximum amount for a full-time student, she says.
Without that money, I have to find a way to take it from something else.
Something that me and my kids depend on a lot.
Julie is a full-time mother and a PSU freshman.
But it's something that I am concerned about. But I'm one of those people that has the advantage and, opportunity to be in this area where there is a lot of support for moms. But I know a lot of people don't have that. So, it's worrisome.
This year, about 11,000 PSU students reported being food insecure, according to campus food pantry data.
And we haven't even seen the cuts from SNAP yet.
I'm worried about the situation.
College junior Marin, among those now turning to the school's food pantry for help.
I think I have a plan to move forward. Of course, there is that worry that things might not go to plan.
I would say to start thinking ahead. Visit the pantry as often as possible and start stocking up on dried goods, things that are going to keep in your pantry. I don't want to instill any fear or have people panic because we're not going anywhere and we're going to be here to support you as best as we can throughout the entire month of November and however long this might last.
The federal government has been shut down for 24 days as of Friday. The shutdown will extend into next week as Democrats and Republicans continue to clash over health care funding.
I feel powerless about it because this is something that I didn't shut down the government. Nobody I know shut down the government and chose to have this.
I think it's horrible, and I really think they need to get it together so that people and families can have what they need to survive out here.
Okay, if this shutdown continues and SNAP benefits do not come through next month, we know it will impact more than 750,000 people statewide. But let's take a look at the impact in Multnomah County, the state's most populous. 143,000 people receive SNAP benefits here, including almost 40,000 children and 20,000 seniors. Now that adds up to about $6 million in benefits every month. I talked with the Multnomah County chair just a few hours ago, and she has this message for those impacted.
But I want to, assure you and everyone watching, we're working with our community partners to see what are all the things that we can do to keep people from experiencing hunger and food insecurity. So we are working on that. I do want to encourage people, everyone in our community, to donate or to volunteer with a food bank. I know that the Oregon Food Bank.
The chair and other local leaders now calling on the federal government to release contingency funds to keep SNAP food assistance going despite the ongoing shutdown, now the second longest in U.S. history.
The thing that makes me angry about this is purely preventable, right? We have children, seniors, veterans, people with disabilities, all of these people who are relying on SNAP to make sure that they don't go hungry. And it's unconscionable that the federal government is shutting off this critical resource to people when it is something that they actually have the power to correct in an instant.
And just today, a memo from the federal agency in charge of SNAP says the Trump administration will not use contingency funds to keep the money flowing next month. It says those funds are not legally available to cover regular benefits and are instead for helping people in disaster areas like those affected by severe weather. The document goes on to blame Democrats for the government shutdown and the reason SNAP benefits won't be paid in November. You know, the political finger pointing in D.C. is seemingly reaching a new low here, with parties not willing or able to make a compromise, using hungry Americans as the pawns caught in the middle. But we want to hear from you. Do you receive SNAP benefits? Are you worried that money won't arrive next month? What are you planning to do? Let us know. We'll stay on top of this in the days and weeks to come. So email us the story at kgw.com or call and leave us a voicemail, 503-226-5090. When it comes to the National Guard being deployed to Portland, yet another late development today regarding the legal battle over if troops will actually be mobilized to protect the ICE building. Kyle Boshi is in the newsroom tonight. Kyle, bring us up to speed.
Things are moving very quickly. In essence, the Ninth Circuit hit pause on an earlier ruling that would have cleared the way for the deployment of the National Guard in Portland. Instead, everything is on hold. The temporary restraining orders remain in place, ensuring the National Guard will not deploy to Portland, at least until Tuesday, while the appeals court decides whether to rehear the case.
And that order today came after a phone hearing this morning. What happened there?
Yes, so federal judge Karen Immigrant is considering whether to lift her previous order temporarily blocking the deployment of National Guard troops to Portland. A decision, she says, should be expected Monday or possibly sooner. During the 90-minute hearing today, a lawyer for the Trump administration said the deployment would be limited to 200 troops. Keep in mind, this order from the Ninth Circuit may undercut the Trump administration's move to lift the second temporary restraining order. The court said that order expresses, quote, no views on the merits on the matter. Late Thursday, the state of Oregon urged the appeals court to reconsider, alleging the Trump administration made a factual error by claiming 115 Federal Protection Service officers, or nearly 25% of the FPS officers nationwide, had been redeployed to Portland to help protect the ICE office. But in fact, only a fraction of that number, 20 or 30 officers, were in Portland at any given time.
And Kyle, these are all sort of temporary, right? The main trial gets going next week.
Exactly. Oregon's underlying lawsuit against the federal government goes to trial on Wednesday. It's scheduled for 3 days. That's the overarching piece of all this, ultimately the most important.
Okay, so much to follow here. Kyle Boshi in the newsroom tonight. Kyle, thank you. Meanwhile, President Trump is continuing his insistence that Portland is a city in distress. Yesterday at the White House, he said he's planning to, quote, take care of Portland with the National Guard.
As soon as we give the go-ahead, which is all I have to do is give the go-ahead. We won the big court case the other day on the National Guard. That was a good case. Same thing with Portland, speaking of that, because that's where we won it.
All right, he talked about last weekend's No Kings protests, which brought out tens of thousands of people in downtown. Those protests remained largely peaceful, although 3 people were detained that night at the ICE building. The president says he saw it differently.
I mean, I looked the other night, Saturday night, Portland is like burning to the ground, and these people are saying it's just friendly stuff. The whole place is burning to the ground. So we'll take care of that one. That's like an insurrection more than it is anything else. That's crazy. Portland's crazy. And then you listen to
Nearly 300 new city-run overnight shelter beds are set to open in Southeast Portland, though for the first time in recent months, they'll be for people who are sober and trying to stay that way. Catherine Cook sat down with Mayor Keith Wilson to talk about the challenges of trying to end unsheltered homelessness.
Southeast Grand near Washington Street. Many here are fighting addiction on the sidewalks, in empty parking lots, and soon, if and when they're ready, inside this building. It used to be an old U.S. bank. In December, it'll open as Portland's newest overnight shelter with up to 200 beds. But unlike the city's other low-barrier shelters, this one will only offer recovery beds for people needing a safe and sober night of sleep.
They've always been neighbors. It's just now they're not going to be intense on the sidewalk.
Locksmith Jim Holloway works and lives in the neighborhood.
I'm excited.
Why?
Because it's going to be a recovery place. And theoretically, we'll be taking them one step farther away from the streets.
Across from the bank is City Team Ministries. After several years in this spot, they're moving downtown. But the city asked them to keep some staff here and run it as another recovery shelter adding 80 more beds.
Honestly, I don't have any concerns about it.
Clay Van Riper works nearby. He knows not everyone welcomes overnight shelters, but thinks it's for the best.
I would be more worried if there was nothing happening, if we were stagnant or moving in the wrong direction. As long as we can establish something that works and then repeat the process through the town, I think that's only a positive thing.
We want to meet anybody where they're at that moment.
Portland Mayor Keith Wilson is trying to end unsheltered homelessness in the city, and he's happy with the progress. But there have been a lot of bumps. The biggest one, opening this low-barrier homeless shelter in the Pearl District. Over the summer, neighbors packed meeting rooms demanding the city reconsider.
Come to us with a real plan that isn't fast-tracked and a half-baked campaign promise.
We heard over and over again was, we don't want to be part of the mayor's campaign promise at the cost of our neighborhood.
Yeah. We had to go on offense, not defense. People are suffering and dying now. We can't ask for permission to care for Portlanders. That offense means that when we had a shelter, we found it, we leased it, we opened it. We weren't going to wait for a 6 or 12-month community engagement.
Wilson did say the community's outrage was warranted.
They've lost trust in our city because every time we've told our city we're going to open a shelter or bring this resource, we would see a degradation in service in that community. That's not a partnership.
But 6 weeks after the Pearl Shelter opened, even the most outspoken critics have said the city seems to be upholding its end of the bargain.
Right now, I think things are going in a positive direction.
The recovery beds on Southeast Grand will bring the city's total number of overnight shelter beds to 1,090, about 400 short of the mayor's goal of 1,500 beds by December 1st.
We have 41 days left.
Are you willing to sacrifice your goal to make sure that you make the right decisions for the right communities?
If it's 1,000, then it's 1,000. Our goal is we need about 200 empty beds every night to allow the flex flow. So if it gets cold all of a sudden tomorrow, I want you to trust we always have some place for somebody to go. That's never a tent, that's never a sidewalk, that's never a doorway ever again.
As part of their partnership with the neighborhood around the Southeast Grand shelters, the mayor says the city will send weekly street sweepers, graffiti abatement teams, and police officers to address open-air drug activity. Okay, let's take a live look outside tonight on this weather impact alert day as we saw the effects from an atmospheric river earlier today. Chief Meteorologist Matt Safino joins us. Matt, we've got more rain on the way.
We do, Blair. We have a second storm gearing up for tomorrow, but today was all about the atmospheric river. Now, I'm showing you the water vapor imagery. Water vapor is not visible to the naked eye, but this sensor on the satellite can see it. And I love using it when we're talking about atmospheric rivers because they're all about the massive amounts of water vapor that they transport from the tropics to our latitudes. Now, you see where it's green? That's where the atmosphere is really juiced up with really high moisture content. And notice how it was off the coast early in the day, over us, and now it has moved on off to the east. So we're done with this atmospheric river, although southern Oregon and eastern Oregon still feeling the effects. The next system is out here gearing up to bring us rain and wind tomorrow. Not really an atmospheric river, but look at the connection of this moisture all the way down to the southwestern Pacific. So again, a lot of moisture transported from that atmospheric river. So what exactly is it? Well, it's similar to an actual river that flows on the ground, but of course an atmospheric river, as the name would suggest, is in the sky. It is in the atmosphere. It is a long, narrow, continuous band of moisture like what I just showed you in the sky. And when it hits the terrain here on the west coast, the mountains, well, that moisture gets lifted and it produces a lot of precipitation because the lifting from the mountains forces the air upward. It cools, you get more condensation and more precipitation of rain and snow. Now, depending on the duration and the strength of the atmospheric river, they can be beneficial or not. So let's break it down this way. They are beneficial because they recharge the water supplies in the west. They're actually really important to California, Blair. They get something like 80% of their annual precipitation from atmospheric rivers. Now, they can cause flooding and other hazards, and they can bring a lot more rain in a short period of time, especially with a changing climate, because as the temperature goes up, for every 1 degree Fahrenheit, you have 4% more water vapor that the atmosphere is able to hold, and that eventually will precipitate out as rain or snow when the temperature drops below 32 degrees. So there is a climate change aspect to this. Now, there's an actual scale for atmospheric rivers, just like there are for hurricanes and tornadoes. Exceptional, that would be an AR, atmospheric river 5, and that means it's a super long duration, like 2-3 days, and has a lot of moisture. That's the moisture scale on that axis there. And then downward from there. This one was like an AR 2 or a 3, kind of right in the middle, and again, largely beneficial. So what's coming up next? Well, we get hit with a minor atmospheric river perhaps on Tuesday. That'll just be some light rain, but towards Halloween, unfortunately, Blair, it looks like a really strong one aimed at us again.
Oh,
so,
no.
I don't know if you have your costume picked out yet.
I was going to be a witch because I love being a witch.
That is so antithetical to who you are. But
Aw, thanks.
I was thinking about dressing up as an atmospheric river.
Oh, Matt! Is it going to be around trick-or-treating time when the rain will hit?
So right now it does look like it would be Friday night, but keep in mind we're 8 days out, so there's plenty of time for this forecast to change. Even if it changes by only 12 hours, then we could be okay for the trick-or-treating hours, but we'll be keeping close tabs on that, of course, as we go into next week.
Okay, I'll be counting on you to change that, Matt.
You got it.
All right. Well, coming up next on the story, the transformation of nuclear waste to radioactive glass is underway at the Hanford site in the state of Washington. We'll show you inside one of the underground tanks presumed to be leaking hazardous waste into the ground, not far from the Columbia River. That's next when the story returns.
See what we can do for you with a free personalized arch support fitting at the Good Feet store.
After more than 2 decades and something like $24 billion, one of the most sophisticated environmental cleanups in U.S. history is finally underway at the Hanford site in the state of Washington. Last week, the low-activity waste facility began the work that will likely continue there for decades. From World War II to the end of the Cold War, Hanford produced dozens of tons of plutonium for the nation's nuclear stockpile, leaving behind some 56 million gallons of highly radioactive waste, which is stored in 177 underground tanks. But now, at least 3 of those tanks are leaking that nuclear waste into the ground, not far from the Columbia River, while many other tanks are assumed to have leaked. Here's a photo you've not likely seen before. This is a look inside one of those underground tanks, sent to us by Washington's Department of Ecology. Not necessarily a pretty sight, kind of haunting, and this is just one tank. Remember, the Hanford site has more than 170 of these. But now the low activity waste facility has begun its process to start emptying some of the radioactive waste from the underground tanks using a process called vitrification. The waste is pumped into melters and superheated to more than 2,000 degrees before it's cooled, forming a solid glass, which looks like this. The glass is still radioactive, but far safer to store. The state says the glass will be permanently disposed of at a nearby facility at Hanford. Though it's worth noting, some of the lower radioactive waste will be encapsulated in a form of grout and disposed of somewhere outside of Hanford. It's not clear where the U.S. Department of Energy will put it. So what comes next? Governor Bob Ferguson's office says treating all of the tank waste will take decades, along with more facilities and infrastructure. But now that the low activity waste is being turned to glass, the vitrification of the high-level waste, the most dangerous, is scheduled to begin in 2033. That radioactive glass will apparently be stored deep underground, where it will stay for centuries. Well, coming up next on the story, when you think of threatened species in the Northwest, does a butterfly come to mind? Well, turns out monarch populations in the West plummeted some 99% recently. How researchers and high school students are working to save them. That's when the story returns. Monarch butterflies from the Northwest are heading thousands of miles south to escape the rain and cold. But their numbers have plummeted recently. And as Audrielle Tackett shows us, all kinds of people are racing to save the threatened species.
They fly high in the sky, often where we can't even see them, migrating between 8 to 1,200 feet off the ground.
We do not know exactly how they know to get to where they're going.
The tiny, mighty, and beautiful bright orange butterflies are headed for warmer weather.
And so that's kind of a mystery.
It's a 2 to 3 month long and up to 3,000 mile journey ahead. Monarchs west of the Rockies are considered the western population. Most head to California, but some may go all the way to Mexico, just like their eastern counterparts.
Whether they're in Mexico or whether they're in California, they are clustered in these tiny little areas. So maybe a few acres in Mexico. Sometimes it's as small as a single tree in California.
The cold-blooded insects can't survive the freezing winters in Washington, Oregon, and Idaho, and neither can the milkweed plants their caterpillars feed on. Those plants go dormant in the winter and hopefully will grow back in the spring. But climate change is turning up the heat, pushing monarchs and milkweed past their limit, while pesticides wipe out the very plants they need to feed, breed, and bounce back each spring. With monarchs now a threatened species, every local effort matters. In Boise, Idaho, high school students spent their summers tracking milkweed and searching for signs of life.
It took the whole summer to do it, but we monitored every milkweed we saw, and we also, when we logged each milkweed, we checked all the leaves for monarch eggs.
Unfortunately, we did find that the monarch population in Idaho is severely decreasing.
The life of a monarch can last 2 to 6 weeks, except for the migratory generation. The last generation born each year are the ones that make the big journey.
They have like an internal GPS that they use.
The travelers can live up to 9 months, long enough to complete the migration south for winter and return north the following spring.
The strongest butterflies are the ones that are going on to reproduce and to create that population for the next year.
In the last 4 decades, western monarchs have nearly disappeared, down 99%. In the 80s, there were up to 10 million monarchs counted. By 2020, fewer than 2,000 western monarchs were found during the winter count.
Habitat fragmentation and degradation as one, and the second is climate change.
The monarchs have made minor improvements. More than 9,000 were counted last year, leaving it a threatened species. For Environment Northwest, I'm Audrielle Tackett.
Well, that is the end of our show, folks. Thanks so much for watching. Timbers 360 is coming your way next. And don't forget, everyone has a story to tell. If you ever miss an episode of The Story at 6:30, we re-air it at 8:30 and 10:30 on our TV app, KGW+, which you can download for free right now on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV. In the meantime, have a great weekend despite all the rain. I'll see you right back here Monday night at 6:30.